There's a moment you've experienced more times than you've admitted. A younger woman looks at you, not long, not exaggerated, just long enough, and then she smiles. You feel it land, and just as quickly you explain it away. She's just being polite. She smiles at everyone. It doesn't mean anything. Men who stay silent about moments like this do so for one reason. They don't trust their perception anymore. And that doubt didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of being told quietly, repeatedly, that attraction has an expiration date. That interest belongs to the young, that if a younger woman notices you, it must be accidental, harmless, meaningless. So you trained yourself to look away from the signal before it had a chance to register. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men never hear explained properly. That smile wasn't accidental, and it wasn't random. It wasn't loud because it didn't need to be. Men who notice patterns, instead of reacting emotionally, understand something others don't. Human behavior rarely announces itself. It reveals itself softly, then waits to see who's paying attention. And the men who miss this moment aren't weak. They were operating without the full picture. Let's slow this down. When a younger woman smiles at you, your instinct is to downplay it because you assume attraction requires effort, performance, impressing, selling yourself. That's how younger men operate. Older men don't realize that what they stopped doing is exactly what's being noticed. You're not scanning the room for approval. You're not trying to be seen. You're not adjusting yourself every few seconds to fit someone else's expectations. You're just there. And that's where the tension begins. Because confidence, real confidence, isn't something you announce. It's something people feel when you're not trying to manage their reaction to you. You stand differently, you move differently, you don't rush your presence. And when a younger woman smiles at you in a coffee shop, a lobby, a line, or a passing moment, it's often because her nervous system has already made a decision before her thoughts caught up. She didn't decide to smile, she responded. This is where most explanations get shallow. They'll tell you confidence is attractive and move on. That's not what's happening here. What she's responding to is containment. Men who have lived long enough to stop chasing external validation carry a quiet psychological weight, not heaviness, density, a sense that nothing needs to be proven in this moment. And that quality stands out sharply in a world full of noise. Younger men are often still auditioning for their own identity. They're loud, reactive, overexpressive, constantly checking how they're being received. You're not. And that difference creates contrast. That smile is her noticing the contrast without consciously naming it. But here's where it gets more interesting, because that smile isn't only about admiration, it's also about safety. Not the dramatic kind, the subtle kind. Emotional safety, predictability, groundedness. Men who don't explain themselves, men who aren't trying to steer the interaction, men who don't need to win the moment, those men register as stable. And stability triggers something deeper than attraction. It triggers ease. She doesn't feel pulled into a performance. She doesn't feel evaluated. She doesn't feel like she has to keep up. She can just exist for a second. That's rare. And the smile becomes the body's way of acknowledging it. Now, here's the part most men get wrong. You assume the smile is either interest or politeness. That's a false binary. Sometimes the smile is a question not asked with words but with attention. Who are you? Are you as calm as you seem? This is where the internal test happens, often without her realizing it. If you flinch, if you look away too fast, if you dismiss the moment with discomfort, the signal closes. Not because you failed, but because the loop stayed open. Men who react chase, men who notice allow. And allowing is where quiet power lives. But we haven't reached the core reason yet. Because the real reason younger women smile at older men isn't admiration, it's recognition. Recognition is a quiet thing. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't explain itself, and it never asks for permission. When a younger woman smiles at you, what she's often recognizing isn't your age, your status, or even your appearance. She's recognizing resolution. Men who have lived long enough to stop negotiating with themselves carry something unmistakable. A settled internal posture, decisions already made, values already chosen, emotional debts already paid. You're no longer auditioning for life, and that changes how people experience you. Here's where the internal tension deepens. Because most older men don't realize this shift has already happened inside them. You still remember the years when attention felt conditional, when you had to earn interest, when being noticed required effort, charm, or proof. So when attention arrives now, unprompted and unforced, you mistrust it. You think, that can't be for me. But that doubt doesn't come from humility, it comes from outdated self perception. Men who never updated their internal identity keep responding to the world as if they're still asking for entry, when in reality, the door has already opened. That smile is often a subtle acknowledgement of authority, not dominance, not control, authority. The kind that comes from someone who doesn't need to explain why they're standing where they are. Younger women are surrounded by emotional volatility, reactivity, overexposure, men narrating their intentions before they've even lived them. Then you appear contained, unhurried, not signaling availability or avoidance, and that difference creates a pause. That pause is where the smile lives. But there's another layer most explanations never touch. A younger woman doesn't smile at an older man only because he's confident. She smiles because he's unpressured. There's no hunger in your eyes, no agenda in your posture, no urgency behind the interaction. You're not trying to extract anything from the moment, and psychologically, that's disarming. People who don't need something from you allow you to relax around them. They don't tighten the room, they don't shift the emotional temperature, they hold space. That's what she feels. And this is where many men unknowingly collapse the dynamic. They rush to define it. Was that interest? Should I act? Should I ignore it? Should I? But the moment was never asking for action. It was asking for presence. Men who notice patterns instead of chasing outcomes understand this instinctively. They don't move to close the loop immediately, they let it breathe. Because here's the psychological truth most people don't want to confront. Attraction often forms after safety, not before it. And safety isn't built through words, it's built through consistency of self. Now, let's talk about experience. Not the brag worthy kind, but the internal kind. Younger men often live in anticipation, older men live in recall. You've seen how things play out. You've watched patterns repeat. You've learned where effort is wasted and where it matters. That perspective softens your movements. It removes desperation from your decisions. And when a younger woman smiles at you, part of her curiosity isn't romantic, it's existential. How did he arrive here? What does he know that I don't yet? What does it feel like to be settled inside yourself? She isn't thinking those words consciously, but her nervous system is listening. This is where the smile becomes a probe, not a flirtation, not a promise, a probe. If you respond with equal calm, no spike, no collapse, you pass without trying. If you overcorrect, joke too much, or retreat emotionally, the probe closes. Men who remain grounded don't try to turn moments into meaning. They let meaning reveal itself. And this brings us to an uncomfortable realization many men resist. Some younger women smile simply because they are allowed to around you. No competition, no performance, no emotional demand, just a brief recognition between two people. That freedom is rare, and it's why the smile often lingers just long enough to be felt but not explained. Because sometimes the smile is exactly what it looks like: attraction. Not loud, not demanding, but real. And once you understand that, you stop questioning your place in the world entirely. You move differently, she isn't, and people feel it before you ever speak.